Hello and welcome to You Are Enough. We are so happy that you're here today. We're going to talk about how to, actually, this show is different because it's about our miraculous healing. And we have a guest here today, and I want to share how that we met. Our show is about really overcoming imposter syndrome, stop comparing yourself, and being your true self in Christ. And I met Barry at Walmart. It was a chance meeting. But when you meet people and the Lord just prompts you to talk to them, you follow that lady. And so it was a wonderful testimony that he has to share with us today. And honestly, miracles. Do you know the Bible talks about miracles are going to follow us, and we're going to do greater things than what they did in the Bible? And this is just living proof of it. So I'm happy to have Barry Sprayberry and his wife Patty with us today. And I want him to share his introduction and start talking about his testimony. Welcome, Barry and Patty.
Hello, thank you, Pam. Thank you for having us on. Again, I'm Barry Sprayberry. This is my wife of 39 years, Patty. And like Pam said, we met in a Walmart a couple of weeks ago. She had gone to get a computer, and my son had gone to get a computer. And they both wanted the same computer, and the Walmart people thought they only had one. So Pam graciously told us, well, I'd already made up my mind you were going to get it. And I told her, I said, no, I'm his father. You were going to get it. And that's what he would have done. That's the way he was raised.
Yeah.
But then another Walmart employee come right behind the first one and said he found another computer. So they were both able to get it. Pam had saw this wire that's attached to my head, and she just asked me if I was okay. And I told her I was doing great. I was a brain cancer survivor. What had happened, I'm an airline pilot. I fly for Endeavor Air. That's the jets you see that say Delta Connection on them. Starting about in September, early September, I started getting a headache every day. And I never had headaches. I was going through captain's upgrade training. It was very stressful. So I just attributed the headaches to the stress from that. Well, when they kept on and wouldn't go away, I sort of suspected there's something else might be going on. So I came in from my last captain's training trip, and that was on Friday, October the 7th. Patty was in Atlanta at our son's house. Her birthday is October the 8th, so we had plans to celebrate her birthday. And I came in, they picked me up at the airport. We went back to my son's house and celebrated her birthday. The headache's still with me. Well, Sunday, I'm helping my son pressure wash his wooden privacy fence, and he had noticed that I wasn't acting right. He even asked Patty, he said, "Mom, what's wrong with my dad? Something's not right." And she just told him that I was probably stressed from the captain's upgrade training and like that. And then we drove home we live in Dayton, Tennessee. That's
What did he notice though about you? What was different that he thought something was wrong?
He just said I was kind of aloof and easily forgetting things, and which is not like me at all. Yeah. And he's pretty observant.
Okay.
So Patty and I drove home that afternoon, and we were building a house up here in Dayton, Tennessee. And I had some friends from Atlanta that, since we had broke ground on that house back in November of 22, they would come up regularly and help us work on it. We pretty much did it ourselves. And they came up Monday, October the 10th. They were here, and we went over and worked on the house. I still got the headache. Well, one of my friends, Johnny Cooper, his wife is a MRI and CAT scan specialist in the neuro department at Emory University Hospital in Atlanta. And that evening he was talking with her and telling her what my symptoms were. And they've known me for almost 30 years. And Lynn told Johnny, said, you tell Barry, I said he needs to go to the hospital now. Not tomorrow, not the next day. Something is going on in his head. He needs to go now. So that's all Patty needed to hear. And she grabbed me up and threw me in the car, and we went to Erlanger emergency room in Chattanooga. And I'd had another friend that has a doctorate in psychology, although that's not his profession. I call him the smartest man I know because he has several degrees. But anyway, I had recently spent some time with him, and he told me I was exhibiting symptoms of someone who may have had a minor stroke recently. So that concerned me. In fact, on the way to the hospital, I told Patty I wouldn't be surprised to find out that was the case. I even told her, I said, they're going to find something on the right side of my head. Sure.
I won't get into all the details, but I had to go to Walmart and pick up a blood pressure cuff and pulse socks, I think it was, Johnny wanted, and a stethoscope. Well, I couldn't find a stethoscope. And I went out to the parking lot, and I was very concerned. And I met a lady, and she said, are you okay? I said, no, something's terribly wrong with my husband. And I said, I'm going to have to run down. There's not a lot in Dayton. I said, I'll have to run down to Walker, and I'm trying to find a stethoscope. She said, I just moved here about a year ago, and I'm unpacking boxes, and I found a stethoscope yesterday. Would you like to have it?
Wow.
So I went to her house and got the stethoscope. And as I was backing out of her driveway and driving down the road, people can believe it. I simply don't care what people think. But God spoke to me and said, Barry has a tumor. I heard it. I felt it. I don't know how to explain it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Twice I have truly felt like God literally audibly spoke to me, and both times were over him. So, yeah.
That's amazing. So was it like you heard like somebody was in your car, or was it just like you heard something speak to your heart? Or?
Yes, all of it.
Yeah.
I felt like there was a voice. I felt it inside. I cannot describe. I will not try to take away from what it was, because I can't say it was audible, but it wasn't. I don't know how to explain that.
That's amazing. Oh, that's amazing. So then y'all were still on your way to the hospital, or you were at the hospital at this
we had gone back home and got him.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to the hospital. I told Patty on the way, I said, I would not be surprised to find, if they find out I've had a stroke on the right side of my brain. I knew something on the right side.
Yeah.
So we got down there and talked to the attending doctor and told him that Dan said I was exhibiting symptoms of someone who'd recently had a stroke. It wasn't, less than an hour, maybe. They were taking me back for a CAT scan. And then less than an hour after that,
it was minutes.
The doctor came out and he said, well, Barry, we know why you're having headaches. Why is that, doc? He said, you have a brain tumor. I said, brain tumor? Well, what kind of brain tumor? He said, well, it's a high grade. Doc, what does that mean? He said, it has the appearance of being malignant. And I was just crushed. You know, I thought my life was over.
Yeah.
And he told me it would have to be removed. I'm going to have to do surgery, and they'll send it out for pathology and all such as that. So I immediately started calling my kids, my sister. Her husband is a pastor in Virginia. I was calling anybody that I knew would put me on their prayer list.
Right.
Well, several years prior, I had flown with a what they call a line check airman at another airline I flew for. He's one that new pilots fly with him, and they sign them off saying, yeah, they're good to go. Captain Chris Ludwig. And he left the impression on me as just the most Christian, godly man. You could just feel it when we were flying together. Our trip together was a pleasure. And so I'd stayed in contact with him now and again. It had been a couple of years since I talked to him. So I called him and I said, Chris, it's Barry, and I need your prayers. He said, absolutely, brother. What's going on? And I told him all about it. I said, they think I have a malignant brain tumor on the right side of my brain, and it's going to have to be removed. And he said, Barry, you've got nothing to worry about here. He said, God has this, brother. He said, this ain't even a bump in the road for him. And he said, you mark my words, what a testimony you're going to have on the other side of this story. I immediately felt a peace come over me like I had never felt in my life. From that moment on, I did not worry about this brain tumor. I knew everything was going to be all right.
Amazing.
We claimed it.
Yes.
And so, like I said, this was Monday night, October the 10th. The next day, we met the neurosurgeon who was going to do the surgery. And he said, I can take you in as soon as today. And Patty spoke up and said, well, our children are on their way from Atlanta. He hasn't seen his children. Let's wait till, they get here until we go into surgery. I think maybe Patty was afraid if I didn't make it through brain surgery, then, my kids would be upset because they didn't talk to me.
Or didn't come back whole, unable to speak or unable to see.
Yeah, I think she was afraid I might have some sort of amnesia or something.
That was a very real possibility with the part of the brain they were working on.
It was my right temporal lobe is where it was. So he decided that he would do surgery Thursday, October the 13th at 10 o'clock in the morning. And so they did. I don't remember anything after they took me out of the room. We were in a room in the ER. They hadn't moved me upstairs yet. And after they took me from there, I don't remember anything until I woke up. I woke up after surgery, laying there on a gurney, and felt just absolutely normal, except my head felt like it had been in a vice because it had.
Yeah.
And I saw a nurse standing there. I said, honey, please get me something for a headache. I said, my head is hurting. She said, okay, I'll get you some morphine. I said, no. No morphine, no opioids. I can't stand the way those things make you feel. And so she worked it out with the doctor and got me something that worked. One other time in the 6 days I was in the hospital, I took a pill for a headache. One other time. That's all I needed.
Wow.
Just no pain.
God is so good.
He is. The day after surgery, I was joking with the nurses. I said, I bet you I can get up and walk around the nurses station. And they're like, oh, no, you can't do that. You just had brain surgery and all such as that. And eventually I talked to them. I said, well, y'all walk right beside me and I'll show you. I almost ran off and left them. Got up, walked, no balance issues, no nothing. And Dr. Patel, the surgeon, Prayash Patel here in Chattanooga, had told Patty that he removed 1/3 of the right temporal lobe of my brain.
Wow.
And when I tell you I felt no different, no issues, I mean nothing.
Wow.
I hadn't forgotten anything. It was miraculous.
That is so
He was
wonderful.
better
Yes.
because he didn't realize it, but he had been shuffling his feet. I saw things, sleeping more, but we thought it was stress. But he woke up on Thursday better than he had been in probably a couple of months.
Wow. That is so wonderful. And to have your friend, your pilot, pray with you and just claim in Jesus' name, that it was done, that this wasn't anything for God. And that's the truth. The little things, not that this is little, this is not little by any means, but, nothing is too small for God is what I mean.
Absolutely. And the miracles were not near done.
Yeah.
That was just the first
one.
I talked to Dr. Patel, and he told me when he I don't know if you can see the remnants of a scar
Oh, yeah.
right there.
Very
A
minor.
bit.
It's
Just a
very
little
minor.
bit though, yeah. Can't hardly tell.
He told me he opened up my skull and the tumor was right there, easily accessible. He said one of the concerns with a tumor like this is usually they're so deeply entwined in the brain tissue that they're not able to get it all.
Mm.
He said it was right there, readily accessible. He was able to remove the entire tumor and had to take some of my gray matter, but it's the way it goes. And so that was a miracle. And
That
again,
is.
I had no balance issues, no speech issues. I could walk. Everything was fine. I knew who everybody was, you know.
That is
Well,
so
2 weeks
wonderful. Yeah.
2 weeks post-op, I went for a visit with Dr. Patel in his office. And when he came in, I jumped up and shook his hand and everything. And he stared at me with his mouth hanging open like a brook trout.
Yeah.
He's like, and he put his hands out. I said, "How are you doing this?"
Yeah.
I said, "Hand of God, Doc. Hand of God." He said, "This is amazing." He said, "I removed 1/3 of the right temporal lobe of your brain." I said, "Well, all I know to tell you, Doc, is I had never used it." It was empty. He said, "You don't seem to have any cognitive issues whatsoever." I said, "Doc, unless there's something I missed, I don't." He said, "This is amazing." He said, "I'm going to send you to our testing group and let them do cognitive testing on you. And depending on how that comes out, we might can get you off these anti-seizure medicines." Because they had told me when I was in the hospital, I would be out of work for at least a year. I couldn't drive a car for 6 months, and I would be on the anti-seizure medicines for a year.
Wow.
And so I went to get the cognitive testing with another neurologist in the Erlanger group. And he had all the papers laid out there, and Patty was with me, and he said, "Let's do some preliminary stuff, see where you stand." And he did the stuff where you follow my finger with your eyes, don't move your head, close your eyes and touch your nose, you know, all that kind of stuff. And after about 2 minutes, he just stopped. He said, "Barry, you don't need this test. Ain't nothing wrong with you." He said, "I'm just going to get a brain EEG." "Okay, you're the doctor." So he ordered an EEG. They did it the next day. And then he went out of town for a seizure conference. He was a seizure specialist. And so it was a couple of weeks before I could get back with him to get the results. And I was dying to know the results of the EEG. And so finally got back with him and I said, "Doc, I'm dying to know the results. How was it?" He said, "Barry, not only was your EEG absolutely normal," he said, "but when someone has brain surgery and a piece of the skull is removed, that disrupts the skull's natural insulating ability for the brain. And in an EEG, we always see abnormal electrical activity in that area." He said, "Your EEG was absent of any abnormalities whatsoever."
Wow.
He said, "And your EEG revealed you've never had a seizure." Because they told me they're sure I had had seizures. And I said, "No, I haven't." He said, "Your EEG revealed you've never had a seizure." And he said, "Also, the miraculous thing, according to your EEG, there is no evidence whatsoever that you even had surgery."
Wow.
He said, "Barry, that's almost impossible." I said, "Doc, nothing's impossible where God's involved."
Man. Now, this was just a month after your surgery, or was it like 2 months? Or?
This was
It was knocking on the door.
is December. Is about a month and a half.
Okay. Wow.
And so this doctor said, "Based on the results of this, I'm going to take you off the anti-seizure medicine. I'm going to let you go back to driving a car. And as far as I'm concerned, you can go back to work whenever they'll let you."
Wow.
Yeah. Well, the issue is the FAA right now will not let me hold a medical certificate, which you have to fly, particularly airlines. So I explained to him why the FAA didn't share his opinion. And he said, well, whenever they'll let you, I'm good with it. And I'll talk to your other doctors and, all stuff like that. So I thought, okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
That's great. And this is just 7 months. I mean, this time right here is just 7 months after all that happened.
Yes, for 7 months.
Right now, yeah, we're right at 7 months. Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
But
Amazing.
Back to the miracles, when I was in the hospital, Patty would not leave my side. I was in there for 6 days and 7 nights. And so my buddy Dan, he lives in Dothan, Alabama. He's a pilot like me. That's how we met. He has his own airplane. He called me one day. He said, Barry, there is nothing you can't ask of me. There are no limits. What can I do for you and your family? I said, Dan, can you fly to Fredericksburg, Virginia and pick up my sister and her husband and bring them to me here in Chattanooga? He said, absolutely. Oh. Can they go today? I said, yeah. He said, tell them to meet me at Fredericksburg Airport. So he took off from Dothan, flew to Fredericksburg, got them and brought them here. And so my sister got there, and then Patty felt comfortable. She had to go home, take a shower, repack bags, because we'd been in the ER at that point for what, 3 days?
Monday night till Thursday morning. So
yeah, Monday night to Thursday morning.
Wow.
So, and the whole time I was growing up, my older sister, my younger sister just doted on me. I was spoiled rotten. Patty had a tough job when she married me.
Those babies.
Yeah. So I was the middle of 3 children.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so Debbie just stepped right in. Debbie and I had shared an apartment before Patty and I got married. So Patty knew how Debbie took care of me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for the previous 15 years, Debbie and I had had no relationship whatsoever. Oh. We had some family issues and dynamics that don't really bear going into, but yeah, we didn't talk for about 15 years. Last August, I came in from a 4-day trip. Patty picked me up at the airport. We were at my son's house again, and I'm sitting there watching TV, and my little 6-year-old granddaughter comes up to me. My grandkids call me Paul.
Yeah.
She says, Paul, you got sisters? I thought, well, that's awful strange. Why would she ask me that? And I said, well, yeah, honey, I do. I have 2 sisters. I have an older sister and a younger sister. She said, Paul, what's their names? I said, well, my older sister is named Debbie. My younger sister is named Lisa. Oh, Paul, where they live? I said, well, Debbie lives in Virginia near our nation's capital with her husband, Doug. And I said, in 1986, Lisa went to live in heaven with Jesus. She was in a car accident. She said, oh, Paul, Debbie don't live at heaven? I said, not yet, honey. She will one day, but not yet. And then she looked at me so serious. She said, Paul, can just me and you go see Debbie? And I felt about that tall. Because if I'm honest with her, I said, well, honey, your old sorry grandpa don't even talk to his sister. And so right after that, I went out on another 4-day trip. And oh, yeah, Stella had just gotten saved 2 weeks prior to this. She's 6 years old.
Wow.
And so I went out on another trip, got done early one day, got in a hotel. I called my sister. We spent over 3 hours on the phone talking about it. She was on the same page. This had gone on long enough, you know, and part of it was because this thing could cut diamond right here. And we got everything worked out. Thereafter, we talked on the phone a couple of times a week, just like we always had. It was things were back to new again. God knew I was going to need my sister, and he worked through my little 6-year-old granddaughter to make it happen.
Yes. That is so amazing. I mean, he uses all of us in so many different ways, you know, and just to speak through a child like that, you know, it was just like coming through the throne, right? It was just coming right out of her mouth from the throne. Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought that, well, my son and his wife had to have talked to her about my sisters because I never had. She wouldn't know who I was talking about.
Mm.
And I asked Clay and his wife, and they said, we have no idea why she asked you that. We've never talked to her about Debbie and Lisa. She wouldn't know who that was.
Wow.
So it was God.
Yes. Yes. He is so miraculous. I mean, to men. And, you know, you're talking about your healing of your brain cancer. There's a lot of people that are going through that. And also family, mending family ties. There are so many people that need to do that. And, you know, like you said, it could go on for years and years, but just somebody, you know, take that step, you know, follow that leading of the Lord, and you know, it just comes together. You just come together, and the Lord, He's in it. So He's working it out through each of you. So that is just wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah. And the whole time, you know, I have doctor's appointments to go to. I had a medical oncologist, a radiation oncologist, and the neurosurgeon, the three doctors that primary. My primary was the medical oncologist. And I go see him a couple times a month. Every time I would go see him, he was just amazed. He told me, he said, you are definitely in the top 10% of my patients as far as recovery after brain surgery. Well, then the next visit, he told me, he said, no, you're not in the top 10%. I was like, oh no, what happened? He said, he said, you are the 1%.
Oh my
I was
gosh.
like,
Oh my goodness.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
But every time I go to a doctor, they just could not believe, you know, that I was doing so good. And I asked my neurosurgeon at one visit, now, keep in mind, this is a guy that's qualified to do surgery on brains.
Mm.
He's one of the sharpest knives in the drawer.
Yeah.
I said, Doc, other than God above, is there any medical explanation for why I'm doing so good? He just said, Barry, it is what it is.
Oh my goodness. Well, see that you're even witnessing to him in the medical profession. You know, I'm sure he hasn't seen anything like this before. So it's not that your miracle has really just had like tentacles and touched so many people and so many families, so many lives.
After the surgery, they told me, you know, I would have to undergo 6 weeks of radiation and an oral chemo pill. Here's the side effects you can expect from this. And they listed the side effects, a list that long, you know. I want you to know I did not suffer one single side effect.
Thank goodness. From
the radiation or the chemo. After a couple months, some hair here where they directed the radiation started coming out, but that's to be expected.
Yeah.
But I never got sick. I never even had to take a nausea medicine while I was taking that chemo pill. And they warned me that that would be probably the one thing, you know, and just, they forgot to clear that with God. God said, no, we're not going to have no side effects here. Sorry.
Yeah. I know, that's so wonderful. And he's just moving today. I mean, I know that you were saying in other ways that he had moved, like for your future. I mean, are you planning to fly again? Is that going to be a possibility for you?
If that's his plan. Now, my medical oncologist, Dr. Verdana, all along during this entire process, I felt like he was kind of preparing me for one day when he was going to tell me, hey, you can't fly an airliner again. Because he would make comments like, you know, it might not be possible. And I was like, oh, Doc, you know, come on. And then one day he asked me, he said, Barry, would you want someone flying your family around that had a brain tumor and possibility of having a seizure? And I was honest with him. I said, no, Doc, I wouldn't. He said, well, that's where we are with you. I was like, okay, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand, but I'm not going to give up. I told Patty, I said, I'm going to fight like the third monkey getting on the ark in a thunderstorm. So I kept the faith. And a week ago, last Tuesday, I went to him for my monthly visit. And he was looking at all my scans. And every scan I have had since my surgery, another miracle, has been absolutely 100% clear. They're concerned with this. It's called a glioblastoma multiforme. Short, they call it a GBM. Their concern is recurrence. They said it always comes back. Well, again, they forgot to clear that with God. All my scans have been, they're scanning me at least every 2 months for the first year. And then as I understand it, they'll scan me every 3 months for the rest of my life. But all the scans have been completely clear. Still no side effects.
Yes.
Other than I finished my radiation, 6 weeks radiation and that chemo pill the end of December. And then they put me on this clinical trial for this device that I wear on a shoulder bag around me like that. And that's what these wires are hooked to. It's called an Optune device. And what it does, it puts, I have adhesive pads on my head, and there's 4 of them. Each pad has 9 transducer discs about the size of a nickel. And this box generates a electromagnetic current, if you will, and it puts it directly into my brain. And what that does, it prevents cancer cells from dividing. And if they can't divide, they die.
Wow.
But it doesn't affect healthy cells, unlike chemo. So it's they had very
I've never heard of that device before. So that's amazing.
They've had very good results with it. I don't feel anything on my head. I can sleep in it and go about my normal day. They want me to wear it 18 hours a day. I can bank hours. Like if I wear it 24 hours, then the next day I could take it off for 6 if I want to.
Right.
So, but that's a small price to pay for something that could possibly help save my life. But,
yes, amen. Give all the glory to God. That's amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's through him, he allowed this to be invented. So, but anyway, I went to Dr. Vardana. Tuesday was a week ago for my monthly visit. And he's asking me all kinds of questions. How are you tolerating the Optune device? And I'm fine. How are you eating?
All the time.
Good home cooking, Patty. I know you gotta cook
all the time.
How are you sleeping? He's asking all kind of questions. And he said, what's the status of your flying? Because I had told him all along that I'm a member of Airline Pilots Association, and we have a medical staff with a team of doctors that's very familiar with this kind of stuff. And they will reapply to the FAA for me to get my medical certificate back.
That's good.
And he said, what's the status of your flying? I said, well, the union doctors, they're going to reapply to the FAA on my behalf when it's time. And I said, Doc, I'm not trying to put pressure on you, honestly, but they will largely base their decision greatly off what you say. He said, oh, I'm fine. He said, you're good to fly. I said, what did you say?
Yay, praise the Lord.
He said, yeah, you're good. He said, Barry, I've been looking at all your scans. They're all perfectly clear. All your blood work's always been good. All your tests have been good. And he said, neurologically speaking, you are 100% normal. Well, Doc, I have several hundred friends that would argue that with you, but okay.
That's just so amazing.
He cleared me to fly. And again, I still have to be cleared by the FAA, but having him on board makes that much, much easier.
Yeah, so true.
Another miracle, right after the surgery, I know I'm going on disability, the insurance that I pay for through work. And of course, Patty and I had some financial concerns because on disability.
Hey there, I'm Diane Forster, host of I Have Today, where we talk about the art of intentional living. Our show is on the Fresh Takes channel on Mondays at 11 a.m. Pacific. So if you're ready to be inspired, empowered, and educated and learn how to live the I Have Today way, then tune in. Hope to see you there.
Hello, welcome back. We are talking with Barry Sprayberry and his wife Patty about his miraculous healing miracle and how the Lord healed him of brain cancer. And it's only been 7 months, and he's already making miracles happen. After 2 weeks, he was amazing, the doctors. And they told him he was in the 1%. He's had family restoration, and we're going to continue hearing about the miracles that are happening through this healing. Barry, tell us some more.
Hello again. All right. As I was saying before, when this happened, Patty and I had financial concerns because while I'm on disability, short-term disability, I only get 50% of my pay. Well, about that time, the company decided that they needed to renegotiate our contract because there's such a pilot shortage, and we had a lot of pilots leaving, going to other airlines, and they wanted to be competitive and keep pilots on property. So they renegotiated our contract and just threw what I call stupid money at us. And one of the changes they made in the past, when you upgraded to captain like I had done, you did not get captain's pay until you passed your last training flight with the FAA and was signed off. That's what I was doing, in the process of doing, when this happened. So I never got signed off by the FAA. Well, one of the changes they made in the new contract is you get captain's pay on the day you show up for captain's training.
Wow.
So now I'm getting paid captain's pay, and it is about what I was making when I was flying full time as a first officer.
Wow.
So God said, you have no financial worries. We knew we could live off that because we had been for the previous 5 years.
Yes.
Just every roadblock we ran into, God stepped in and said, hey, I got this.
That's awesome. Exceedingly
And he did there as well.
Yeah, above all that we ask or think, he will do for us.
Yes.
That is amazing.
He certainly has in this case. And then on one of my visits to Dr. Vardana, he's looking at his laptop and he's just smiling like a kid on Christmas morning. I said, Doc, what's going on? He said, I'm just looking at all your tests and scans and everything. He said, I've been in practice a little over 15 years. He said, in that time, I've had what I would consider 2 patients cured of glioblastoma.
Wow.
He said, looking at all your records and everything, he said, I've got every reason to believe you're going to be my number 3. And I wouldn't think that doctors throw around the cure word with something like this,
Right.
unless they were serious.
Right.
And I confirmed that with Dr. Patel. He said, oh, no, he wouldn't have said that if he wasn't serious.
Yeah.
So,
wonderful.
it's just been something like that every couple of weeks. It's just been miracle after miracle after miracle.
Well, this is a miraculous.
It's to the point now I tell people,
Mm-hmm.
God is just showing off with me now.
Yes, for sure. For sure he is. So
Yeah.
is someone or some family that, may be going through the same thing, I mean, what would you tell them? How could you encourage and support them?
Just turn, like the Bible tells us, turn everything over to him. Give it all to him, and have faith. Claim it. Pray about it.
Yeah.
And there is no telling how many people were praying for me. All up and down the eastern seaboard of the United States. My sister said at their church, they had a big prayer chain going. A girl I went to high school with is a neuro nurse at Houston Methodist Hospital out in Houston, Texas. She told her coworkers about all my miracles, and she said after a while they would come to her every couple of weeks and say, hey, what's the latest on the miracle guy? So, word gets around.
Yes, it does. And
And
so quickly.
yeah.
The good news is spread so quickly.
But
Yes.
most people that have this, what I had, well, I shouldn't say most, a lot of them never get out of the hospital. They succumb to seizures. And I've never had a seizure, never even felt like I wouldn't know what a seizure felt like, to be honest with you. But I've just been touched by the hand of God, and there's no better place to be.
I'm telling you, there's not, because when we're in his open hand, that is abundance, that's favor, that's blessing, that's healing. That is just, one blessing is following you right after the other, as it says in Amos 9:13. So now, how do you help others? How are you paying this forward? How is God leading you to minister to others?
Well, what we're doing right now. I've had several people who want me to come to their church and speak, and I'm glad to do that.
Yes.
And no money involved in that. That's not what this is about. This is about bringing people closer to God.
Yes.
And so if that's what he wants me to do, then my prayer has been, illuminate the path you want me to take. Yes. And if that's what he hasn't planned for me, that's what I'll do. Because if I can inspire somebody, if I can bring just one person to God or closer to God, it's worth it.
Yes, and our meeting was no chance meeting. God had a hand in that for sure. When I have to tell you,
absolutely,
when I saw you and your son walking in Walmart, I'm like, oh, they're going back to the computers too. But you reminded me of a friend of ours, one of my husband's, and he's a preacher, and he has a restoration service. So I thought, I wonder if that's Tim, and then I realized, it wasn't, but it was just really a God meeting. And I feel like, people need to pay attention, just like Patty heard God's voice. You need to pay attention to what God is telling you in your heart, and just have that courage and boldness, be confident in who you are and your identity in Christ, as you go forward with this wonderful, miraculous testimony. It's definitely a message for the world, and the world needs it.
I am glad to tell it to whoever is willing to listen. And those chance encounters you were just talking about, after my first radiation treatment, we leaving the hospital, I told Patty, I said, go by the Chattanooga airport. I had a parking pass that I paid $40 a month for to park, because I would catch an airplane in Chattanooga and fly to Atlanta to start my trips. I said, there's no need for me to keep this pass, because I'm going to be grounded for a while, so I'm going to go cancel it. Mm-hmm. So she let me out, and I walked down the hall going to the parking office. I turned a corner and nearly bumped into a lady. Oh, excuse me, ma'am. She said, oh, it's okay. Can I help you? I said, well, I'm looking for the parking office. It's right here behind me. I work there. We're closed for lunch right now. Can I help you with something? I explained to her, I was a pilot, and I needed to turn in my parking pass because I just had brain surgery and I was going to be out for a while. And she jumped back. She said, you just had brain surgery? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, how are you doing this? I said, it's the hand of God, ma'am. Yes. Well, Pam, she just stood there and started boo-hooing. Oh. Just crying. I said, ma'am, are you okay? She said, yes, I'm fine. She said, you have no idea how badly I needed to hear those words today. And she commenced to tell me some struggles she was going through in her life, not details, but just things that were going on. And I told her, I found out her name was Cindy. I said, Cindy, turn it all over to him. There's nothing he can't handle. Just turn it over to him. And she said, oh, thank you so much. I so badly needed to hear those words today. It was God that caused you to turn that corner and nearly bump into me. I said, yes, ma'am, it was. So you never know who needs to hear.
Right, because you don't know
You
where
never
everybody
know.
is in their life. Everybody's at a
That's
different
right.
place, and
That's
on
right.
the outside, our human carnal flesh wants to judge or think, nobody wants to hear this, but the spirit, that's why we walk in the spirit and walk by faith, because that is what really speaks to people and gives them the hope. You just gave her hope. That's hope she needed.
Right. She was so thankful, and she just kept saying, I really, really needed to hear that today.
Yeah.
I said, well, spread the word, Cindy. I said, you never know who needs to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Tell everybody. And then something as simple as the guy that did gutters on our new house. I shared with him the story about my sister and how we were estranged. And he told me that he and his mom had been estranged for a couple of years. And Patty and I talked to him, said, do not give up. Don't go see her. And Patty told him, if she's not receptive, try again. Not receptive, try again. Well, he stood there in our kitchen just crying and said, I can't believe this.
He said, I don't know what's happening right now.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening right now. That's what he said. He said, but I would have never considered this had I not stopped by here today. But when I leave here, I'm going to go see my mother. Good. Well, I texted with him since then, and they have restored their relationship.
Oh, that's wonderful.
You never know who needs to hear it.
And she's
You're already
already ill with cancer.
Oh, yeah. I don't want to wait when people are sick like that, because you don't know.
Mhm.
You don't, I mean, we only have today, right? We're only promised this time, this moment.
Not guaranteed tomorrow. That's a fact.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so happy that y'all could join and really share your miraculous miracle testimony. I'm definitely going to keep in touch, and I want to know what's coming, because I feel like you may have a book in the workings, maybe, or if you're speaking anywhere. I'm going to add all that in the on this show so people can reach out to you, and if they want you to come speak or get a copy of your book whenever you have that ready, that would be fabulous.
Yeah, my buddy Dan.
Mm-hmm.
Dan is a published author, the guy that went and picked up my sister. And he and Patty have been on me about writing a book. And I'm like, I don't know nothing about writing a book. And they said, people need to hear this story. So long story short, I've got 39 pages of it done. Working on it slowly.
Awesome. Yes, congratulations. Yeah, that is very awesome.
And the title of it will be The Other Side of This Story. Because Chris Ludwig told me that I would have an amazing testimony on the other side of this story.
Oh, wow. I love that.
He was so right, too.
Yes. Well, God is definitely using you.
So right.
Mm-hmm. And I just thank y'all so much for being here. And I look forward to what the future holds for you and for all of us to hear and see you, grow and really follow in the ministry for the Lord. So thank you. Thank you so much, Barry and Patty. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Pam. I appreciate this opportunity. I really do. Thank you so much.
Yes. And thank you all to our listeners who are tuned in for joining today. And I pray that you have gotten a blessing or a word, something has touched your heart to realize your words make a difference. Your words create, and your testimony or message needs to be heard. So share your message as well. Thanks for being on You Are Enough today.